And we are kicking things off. This is episode 5 of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. Have some week 4 recaps for you in high school football, along with a ton of other segments. I am your host, Jason Duhe. Of course, with me is head coach Frank Monica. And we have a ton to get to today. We're going to preview some of the next week's high school football games, a local college football roundup for the local teams. We're also going to be talking about in our Let's Be Frank segment, how recruiting has changed over time. And, of course, we have special guest, Tulane head football coach Willie Fritz. Should be a great show. Coach, we discussed this the other night when we were talking about the show, how quickly this season goes. And we say it every week, but it doesn't get any slower as the season has progressed.
Oh, no. I mean, the coaches right now, they're in the middle of a grind. It's not easy right now because of all of a sudden the injuries start to mount up, and people start to get tired, and they start to look forward to the district play. But even though district play is not as important as it used to be because of the power ranking system, but right now it is a grind, and I think the more resilient teams are the teams that end up in the Superdome at the end.
And we also want to thank our title sponsor, Accardo and Duhe Law Firm, for being the title sponsor of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. We're going to go ahead and dive into prep talk. Week 4 recap, a ton of big games that occurred. And I'll go ahead and start with our first game, which was St. Aug, who took on Carr. Of course, the big news coming preceding this game was that Carr was forced to forfeit 3 football games, which didn't matter on the football field in this night. A 49-7 victory over St. Aug, proving how talented and powerful of a football team they continue to be, churning out talent, continuing to win state titles, and it looks like they're on a roll. They jumped out to a 21-point lead and really never let up. DeAndre Samuel went for 218 passing yards and piled on 68 rushing yards on his way to 3 touchdowns. A big game for that ball club, and I don't expect things to change anytime soon. All right, in our next matchup, we had De La Salle taking on St. Charles. De La Salle came away with the 27-14 victory. Coach, you were at that ball game. What did you notice during this game and how it played out?
Well, it's first of all, St. Charles played with their backup quarterback. Brady St. Pierre did a phenomenal job replacing a great quarterback in Aiden Arthemont. But he did a great job. They had to throw the ball to move it against De La Salle. They were a lot bigger and very, very physical football team. But St. Charles couldn't hold on. De La Salle, that was not a throwing team. You knew walking in that they're going to have to rush the ball. They did that. Martin is a great back. I mean, he has over 200-something yards on his own. But their ground game was just too much for St. Charles to handle. But they actually made a pretty good game out of it, even though they were outmanned, and they were there to the very, very end. They were out a couple of starters on defense, and naturally, without Arthemont being in there, it made it a little bit different. Not that they had to change the offense very much. Very, very, very impressed with the way Brady St. Pierre performed, but give De La Salle credit. They're just a bigger physical football team and front, and they're a team to reckon with in the future.
Coach, another game that you were at is also Holy Cross as they took on Rummel. Rummel, of course, came out with the 14-7 victory. What were some of your takeaways in that game?
Well, Rummel jumped out to an early lead and had to go forward on 4th down to get a touchdown, but Holy Cross responded and they actually moved the ball on the ground again, and Rummel was very resilient to the very end. A number of 4th down stops that they had to have. The time of possession was heavily in favor of Holy Cross in terms of that. And the offense, for Rummel's offense, didn't get a lot going, but it did enough to win the football game. And the great cornerback, he had a nice return for his LSU commit, his nice return to set up a touchdown. And he picked up a fumble and did a nice job of getting the ball in field goal range for him. But they didn't get anything out of that particular drive. But Rummel's 4-0 now, but they're about ready to go to the teeth of their schedule, and with a very, very young defense. But Holy Cross I thought was very, very impressive in the game, and it stuck to that game plan. And it was, on a hot day in the middle of a 2:00 game on the turf, and I was very impressed that they didn't have one player on either side that cramped. So it was a good win for Rummel, but I think they got tougher games ahead of them.
Hawnville at Destrehan. Coach, what were your thoughts on the way this game played out?
Well, at first, I think that the first half was pretty close, and there were a bunch of body blows going on. But then all of a sudden, Destrehan gets a great punt return from Brooks, and that kind of opened the gates up for them. And they came out of the locker room in the second half and kind of put the game away. Very, very explosive football team. Talked to Coach Luquette earlier in the week, and he said, he had to try to shrink the game and keep their offense off the field. But it's hard to do when you got just such a talented team like Destrehan is, and certainly a team that you have to look at to be probably the front runner to end up in the Superdome one day.
So much talent on that football.
By Lee, I mean, from what we understand, that 9 D1 guys on that team from the sophomore year to junior year, and also understand that there's a kid that's a JV player playing on JV that's already been offered by Mississippi State. So they're loaded with talent up and down their roster. And but rest assured, they still got more football to play. But it looks like the stars are lining up for this football team.
You mentioned Lee, Coach. I had a chance to coach against him, and I coached middle school football for a number of years. And you had four. It looked like little giants. You had 4 or 5 guys. Again, a very talented ball club. These kids are playing for East St. John, dragging them behind. You got 4 or 5 guys trying to grab onto him. Very talented back at Destrehan, and he's got a number of offers as a junior. So keep an eye out on him. Newman took on Manny in what was considered to be one of, if not the biggest game across the state this past Friday, 25-17. Manny pulled out the victory. We knew it was going to be a battle of offense versus defense. In this case, Manny had a bit too much defense, actually had a 25-10 lead. Newman had a stop on 4th down on their own 1-yard line, drove 99 yards late in the game, put up that 17-point number, but just couldn't quite get the job done. Newman also is dealing with an injury to one of their best athletes in Will Randall, Texas commit, tight end / defensive end, ACL tear, and hopefully he gets healed up and is ready to play at the next level when that time comes. It's never a good thing when you have to deal with that type of injury. In the last game we're going to talk about is East St. John taking on Thibodaux. East St. John won 57-26. We mentioned this was their first district game. Improved to 4-0 on the year. A ton of offense for the Wildcats, and that's what you're going to see from this ball club. Very explosive offense. Coyle Gray, 10 catches, 237 yards. Meanwhile, their quarterback, Mitchell, passed for nearly 400 yards, and their back, George Martin, nearly 140 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. A lot of offense for East St. John, and Thibodaux still trying to find their footing as they are now in district play. That'll do it for our recaps. Let's look forward into the next week's slate of games in Week 5. We're going to start out with Riverside taking on Country Day. Riverside comes in 12 in the select Division 4 power ratings. Country Day, Division 3, obviously select. They're the 11th in power ratings. Country Day is 2-2 on the year. Riverside is 3-1. Of course, we know about the back end, Elijah Davis and Riverside. Coach, what are you expecting in this matchup between these 2 smaller schools that are looking to get a big win to maybe bump themselves up in the ratings?
Number one, Country Day is playing at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I think that's a neighborhood type of agreement that they have to have with the neighborhood, and that gets them out of Riverside sort of out of sync a little bit because they're used to playing night ball games like most people are, but Country Day has really done a nice job on offense and defense so far. They're within 2 points of beating a real fine A-meet football team last week. And but I think that Coach Lee Roussel at Riverside, he's got a back by the name of Elijah Davis and Luke Email, the quarterback. He's got some weapons there for a Class A school. So I don't see how if Country Day can hold up against that prolific back.
Very talented running back in Elijah Davis. We'll see how that game plays out. In our next matchup, take a look at Brother Martin and Carr. We know Carr slides all the way down to 25 in the power ratings, kind of like an Acadiana situation a few years back where they ended up being the 31 seed and winning the state title. Still a very talented team. The scoreboard shows, regardless of the forfeits or not, that Carr is winning by an average of 40.5 points against some of the top competition in the state. Brother Martin gives up 16 points a game. It should be an interesting matchup to see, but Carr has been rolling lately. We'll see if Brother Martin can slow him down.
Carr looks like they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, especially since they had the ineligible guys. And I understand that they are going to appeal the case. I don't, in a case like that, when you talk about if it's an eligibility ruling, I don't know. The LHSAA is normally pretty steadfast on that ruling, and that they're very strict on that. So look for them to continue to play with a chip in their shoulder. But if anybody could give them a good ball game in the Catholic League, it would probably be somebody like Brother Martin. And that game will be played at Berman's, and that they play on a different level when they play there.
We discussed earlier about the team, Hahnville trying to slow the game down against Destran. You'd have to think this is what Brother Martin's going to try and do: slow the game down, play defensive football, and try to make Carr beat you with as few possessions as they can have. Holy Cross takes on John Curtis. Curtis redeeming themselves last week, 3-1 on the season, but lost to Jesuit twice last year, getting some redemption there. Holy Cross comes in 2-2, have played some very good teams and had a few tight losses. What do you expect in this matchup with this big physical line for Curtis?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you have to start when you play Curtis. You have to stop what they call the hard dive, the inside veer, and because they hand the ball off in the line of scrimmage, and if you can't stop that play, it's going to be a long day for you. But they do have other things they can do. Both their quarterbacks are capable of throwing the football this year, which is unlike they've been in a number of years. They actually have two pretty good quarterbacks, and I think that their offensive line, as you said, Jason, will be the difference in the ballgame. Holy Cross has got a couple injuries to some of their better players, and but yet, I mean, as what I saw Saturday, they still can be a very dangerous football team.
Absolutely. When we look at our next game, we have St. James taking on Woodlawn. Woodlawn is now Division I select, so playing in that brutal playoff bracket along with some of the teams that we've listed already from the Catholic League. St. James is 3-1, only dropped a game to East St. John. Woodlawn is 2-2 with wins over Carver and a big win over Edie White, a team that, as we mentioned, might not be getting the recognition they deserve. Of course, we know about Woodlawn, Ricky Collins at quarterback, LSU commit, and St. James's big playmaker is Kai Preen, who's an LSU commit. Coach, I would expect to see a lot of offensive firework in this ball game. Two very talented offenses going at it.
No question. I think that'd be a very exciting game. It's going to be a unique battle because I don't know if they've ever played. And this is a year of transition when it comes to scheduling. In the LHSAA, you sign 2-year contracts. So this is a very, very interesting game in preseason. It's not a district game, but two really talented football teams. And it's always interesting to see two teams that never played one another because you don't understand them. When you play it the second time, you pretty much have a template about what their philosophy might be. So this is one to watch, and it could be a very interesting game. One that will go down to maybe a sudden death at the end.
Should be an intense matchup. In our next one, we're headed up north. Neville takes on Ruston. Neville and Ruston are both 3-1. Both have played really difficult schedules, especially Ruston, who finds himself with only one loss, and that was an overtime loss to Warren Easton. Neville has a ton of talent, an LSU commit on the offensive line. What do you expect to see in this matchup?
No, I mean, this game has been a rivalry for a long, long time. They've played for a number of years, and way back when, and with Coach Brown was there, and long at Neville. And so and Chick Childress was the Ruston coach. And I mean, they used to have some wars. And for many years, you saw those guys in the playoffs in the Superdome, either Neville or Ruston. And so I would think this game is going to go down the wire. And again, look for overtime.
Jesuit takes on St. Aug. That is a Saturday kickoff. St. Aug is 3-1. Jesuit 1-3. St. Aug has talent all over the field. Jesuit, although they're 1-3, have played very sound defense, and we'll see if Jesuit's slower pace can match the way that St. Aug's game, again, going the opposite way that St. Aug's offense goes. So we'll see how that matchup plays out on the field.
Yeah, if St. Aug has a weakness, it's probably in the tuba section. It's not on the football field. They've also got guys that can really, really run. They have a lot of talent. They'll have a lot more speed on the field than Jesuit, but Jesuit is just Jesuit. They will play very sound. They won't beat themselves. And if they don't give up the explosive play, they will have a chance in this football game because they like to run it a little bit, and they can control the line of scrimmage. And that's something they're going to have to do to slow down St. Aug's vaunted offense.
In our last matchup, we have Scotlandville taking on Rummel. Rummel is unbeaten at the moment, currently sitting in the 3 spot in the Division I power rating select side. Scotlandville is number 15. Scotlandville's 2-2 after they picked up that forfeit win. Rummel continues to play these tight ball games, grinding out wins, finding ways to win. How did they match up against Scotlandville's athleticism?
Well, I think that their defense is going to be tested a lot because the quarterback for Scotlandville is very, very active, understand, and he can run the football. And that scares the defense because you can't play 2-man or a lot of man because if he starts to scramble, everybody's got their back turned. He can run for great yardage. But they're always very talented. They got guys that can run. They're a long football team. Rummel wants to do it the old-fashioned way. Their offense is a sort of methodical offense. They're not a big play offense. They have to first down you to death and try to get the ball in field goal range and maybe shrink the game in their favor. But they're going to have to stop the explosive play. One good thing Rummel does put on the field, their secondary is probably the strength of their football team. Well, it has been. But it will be tested on Friday night.
And a lot of interesting games. Can't wait to see them Friday night. Again, check out a game if you have that time to do so. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at college football and these local college football games that have been played and preview some of these matchups. Coach, we're going to start out with New Mexico taking on LSU. New Mexico's defense is a very hard-hitting, sound group. LSU's offense found a way to muster some points but had some struggles. Their defense played phenomenal, gave up 2 first downs, only 87 yards, I believe it was, and getting a shutout in the college game in this day and age, not an easy thing to do. But a nice, clean win for LSU. The one thing that has to be concerning, the number of injuries might start to add up. We're consistently seeing these players go down for the Tigers. We'll see if it catches up with them as they take on Auburn this week.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jason. And the New Mexico game, it is a good measuring stick. I mean, nowadays, they have 85 scholarships like everyone else. And so you can't take anyone lightly. And I thought that was a good win for Coach, especially coming off the Mississippi State win. And I think he got a chance to play some players. But what seems to be evolving here is the defense is kind of found their stride a little bit. And it looks like they're moving things around. And they have some guys that play in different positions. And so I think this game right here with Auburn is big. I think it's really difficult for them to go into Auburn, even though they're not having a great year. I know their coach is on the hot seat, but if they can pull this one off, no telling where this team could end up.
LSU favored by 9 points in that ball game. I went down to, by the way, if you have not been, an incredible experience to go watch a ball game at Auburn. I used to make fun of the eagle flying on the field. It's one of the things that makes college football incredible. Just a very emotional experience as a fan of college football. Again, a team that was favored by a ton in that game. LSU pulled out a 2-point win, and that Auburn team won 0 SEC games that season. So you can't take any game at Auburn lightly. Very tough environment, very underrated environment. Coach, Southern Miss took on Tulane this past weekend. Southern Miss pulled out the 27-23 win, and a tough loss for Tulane coming off of that Kansas State victory. But again, as we're going to have Coach Fritz on in just a bit, again, a good learning experience, and they have a big game coming up against Houston this weekend that they can rebuild and look forward to.
Yeah, kids have to get used to winning, and I think I've always professed this: after your high is high, is your low is slow. And I mean, you can't. It's hard. People don't understand that intensity is so important in football. You have to have that natural intensity. And sometimes you just don't have it. Sometimes the emotion's not there. I really think a season has so many emotional highs in it. And remember, they're not robots. I mean, this is not PlayStation. I mean, the letdown was sort of expected. I don't know if they're a better football team, but I thought they fought hard and in the ball game they had a chance to win it. But I think they'll learn from it. And I think that I look for them to have a totally different experience against Houston this week.
Big game against Houston this week, as you mentioned. I would expect them to come out firing and fixing and tweaking the things that they need to tweak. but a very good Houston ball club. They are 2-2 on the year, but Dana Holgerson has that program headed in the right direction as they're going to be making that jump to the Big 12 very soon. Next matchup, it was Jacksonville State taking on Nichols. Another tough loss for Nichols, still trying to find their way to getting their first victory of the year. They do take on Northwestern State, which is a 1-3 ball club going into next week. An interstate ball game. There's going to be some emotions in that game, but we'll see if Nichols can find a way to finally put one in the win column.
Yeah, they're now playing somebody their size, and I think that's important. When you play when you play up like that, and against the real D1 schools, it's pretty tough. And I mean, you just don't have the number of scholarships that they have. So I think that Coach Rebo, he knows what to do. He's been there as a veteran coach. They've been a conference champion twice already, under his leadership and stuff like that. Now, this is a big game for them because, but they actually have somebody their size that they can play against, and I look for them to have some success. Don't count them out. This thing is just starting.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Coach, because that's a really important thing to note. Jacksonville State is joining the FBS ranks next season, so they've increased that scholarship limit. As you just said, it's not a fair fight in your words. 85 scholarship players for Jacksonville State, so they're trying to get their total up to FBS level. So again, Nichols playing a team, as you mentioned, that might be quote unquote outmanning them in that department. Big matchup. Crazy ending, Incarnate Word, Southeastern. Southeastern pulls out the 41-35 victory, a huge top 5 victory for the Southeastern team. They've won big ball games before in big situations, but to win in the manner that they did, Coach, what an unbelievable finish.
Of course, with the last play of the ball game, they throw it up, and the guy catches a touchdown pass. So I text Coach Selfo and to congratulate him. And I said, I hope you go to church tomorrow. And he said, well, he had something to do with it for sure. And but you have to be in position to win, and that's what he's done a great job of doing, and putting his kids in position to win. Incarnate Word was led by a 6-year quarterback, Lindsey Scott, and who looks like he had a fine. I didn't see the game physically, but he looked like he had a fine night. And but Southeastern also has a very good quarterback and a good team, so they're still ranked. And don't be a bit surprised if they get in the playoffs themselves and really, really create some noise.
0-4 Murray State will be Southeastern's next opponent. Southeastern looking to capitalize off of that win, kicking down the door before they head into the true heart of their conference schedule. Coach, New Orleans Saints this past weekend. Saints dropped a tough ball game against an 0-2 at the time Carolina Panthers ball club. Offense still seems like it's a bit out of sorts. What was your biggest takeaway from this game, and what do you expect to see any changes as they go to play a game in London?
What jumped out at me was that the lack of emotion they played with, and I don't know why. Could have been the schedule, could have been the time, the flight. You never know. But that emotion is something that you build up during the week of preparation. And as a coach, you never know how the game's going to unfold. You never know how they're going to come out of that locker room. And I hate to use this word. Some people call it unemotional, or you just call it flat. They just didn't seem. I saw a couple of the defenders that never get blocked on the play, and they made things. McCaffrey's a pretty good back. Don't get me wrong. He always goes forward. He falls forward. He's got quickness, and he's just a tough guy. He had 100-something yards. I think they had over 20 carries. In the NFL, that's really, really odd. They have a back carry the ball over 20 yards because they take a pounding. I mean, that's why those backs in the NFL don't last very long. I mean, could you imagine 11 guys trying to tear your ears off? But anyway, I thought that Winston was a little bit out of sync. We all know he likes the deep ball, and but the defense didn't play well either. So I mean, you just kind of chalk that one up and say, hey, we know what we have to do. They find out. Looks in the NFL, all those guys are getting paid. I mean, so it's you can't take anything for granted. I noticed that Sunday a lot of the dogs actually won and or at least covered. So that's a big thing in the NFL that everybody has to remember. All those guys are under contract and they're trying hard.
Yeah, and we need. I'm looking to see some type of adjustments from that offense. The offensive lines had trouble Winston hasn't had a great game thus far, a big comeback in week 1, but definitely need to see some type of change from the Saints, whether it's urgency, whether it's emotion. I can't put my finger on it. I don't have as much experience coaching as you do, but there definitely has to be some type of change. And now you have a full week's worth of practice in London. You've got to find a way to get your energy up. It's not going to be easy traveling out there. They're already practicing, getting adjusted and acclimated, but it's going to be a tough game no matter who they play out there. And we'll see if they can turn things around this upcoming week.
One point I want to make, I think, we always talk about explosive plays. They had a play with Camaro was stripped from the ball. He had real good ball security, but give credit to that guy who just stripped it, and that broke the whole game open, in my opinion. It was one of the explosive plays, one of the big momentum plays in the ball game. So, as a coach, man, you stress the ball security part, but that guy did a phenomenal job, so he knows how to strip it, and that led to me, that led to probably the loss in the game more than anything else.
So that'll wrap it up for our recap and preview segment. In our next segment, we are going to have special guest Tulane football head coach Willie Fritz come on. And later on in our Let's Be Frank segment, we're going to have how recruiting has changed. In Football 101, we have the route tree. We're going to have our lock of the week, and we'll have our Thanks for the Memory segment where Coach is going to talk about the 1984 Jesuit St. Aug game. But before we do, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to make sure to thank Accardo and Dufresne Law Firms, Samuel Accardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Accardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Samuel Accardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Accardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen. Starting in 1981 as an industrial vacuum truck company, A3M Vacuum Services has grown to be an industry leader in waste disposal services. Whether it's providing cleanup crews for plant maintenance or emergency crews for environmental cleanup and disposable projects around the river parishes and New Orleans, A3M Vacuum Services maintains the same level of personal customer relations and work ethic that founder Pat Sellers started almost 40 years ago. Proud supporters of Comet Athletics.
If you're looking for commercial or residential dump truck services, go with R&K Construction. This family-owned and operated business has great trucks and are big supporters of high school sports. Smoothie King LaPlace thanks the community for 29 years. Through the good times and the toughest times, Smoothie King has been here to serve our guests. Whether you're looking for a keto-friendly smoothie, a recovery smoothie, or a healthy, refreshing snack, Smoothie King has you covered. Discover all the ways to be your best self and rule the day with Smoothie King.
If you're in need of storage space at your home or business, stop by and visit with the good folks at Acadia LLC. Seth Boucher and his employees are there weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Give them a shout at 985-359-1333 or visit them at 1301 West Airline Highway in LaPlace.
Welcome back to the Let's Be Frank video podcast. Tonight, our special guest played defensive back for Pittsburgh State before getting his first coaching opportunity as a student assistant at the same school. He got his first head coaching job at Blinn College and won back-to-back NJCAA titles in 1995 and 1996. He won an MIAA title at Central Missouri in 2003, won 2 conference titles at Sam Houston, and posted over a 700 winning percentage at Georgia Southern, where he won the Sun Belt Conference in 2014. He then became the head coach of the Tulane Green Wave. We'd like to bring on our special guest, head coach of Tulane, Coach Willie Fritz. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And you had a ton of success everywhere you've been, but at Georgia State, Georgia Southern, I should say, you were there for a short time. You won a conference title. What was the appeal of Tulane that made you want to move out to Louisiana?
Well, I'd always wanted to coach at the highest level, and the athletic director contacted me, and I didn't know much about Tulane, to be quite honest with you, and he was looking for someone who had built programs up that maybe had been down for a period of time, and the more people I talked to, a good buddy of mine is Greg McMahon, and Coach Monica knows Greg well. I called Greg, and he was with the Saints at the time, and I said, "What do you think? Would this be something that you can get it done?" He said, "I really think you can get it done there, Willie. It's they've had good programs, good teams on occasions. They just haven't done it consistently, and it's been a lot of hard work. We've had our ups and downs, but hopefully we're on the upswing right now. But my wife and I are just really happy that we made this decision. We love New Orleans." Love the people at Tulane, and really feel like this is an awesome opportunity for us.
Coach, let me ask you this. Who was the first guy? Did you have someone, some mentor that you emulated and led you into coaching?
It would be my college coach, Ron Randleman. He was the head coach at Pittsburgh State. That's up in Kansas. Everybody thinks it's in Pennsylvania, but it's in Kansas, and we had some good teams there. Matter of fact, I just talked to him a couple hours ago. He comes to a bunch of my games. He was at our game this last Saturday. He'll be at our game against East Carolina here in a couple weeks, and he was a great role model for me. And my father was into coaching as well, and so that gave me kind of the bug. And I figured out, about my senior year of college, I thought I was a pretty good player, but there was not a great need for 4.8 free safeties in the NFL. I just didn't need any of them. So I got into coaching, and then I was a GA for Coach Randleman down at Sam Houston State. He hired me a few years later as a coordinator, and then I started my head coaching journey. He and his wife were just great role models for myself and my wife too. As you well know, Coach, your wife's got to be heavily involved in coaching.
Your dinner's in the microwave. I know that.
That's right.
Yes, yeah, it's something like that. Coach, I remember Larry Zerline. I'm sure you know Larry Zerline.
Yes,
and I worked together at Tulane for years, and he was from Kansas. And he said, Frank, the average miles per hour in Kansas is 22 miles an hour, the wind. He said, I couldn't wait to get out of that wind. And I know you talked about Kansas also. But Coach, you've been I remember Greg McMahon, you brought him up. Greg McMahon told me this story. He said he was speaking at a Glacier clinic once. And he said it was like 10 o'clock at night, the very last session, maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock. There were only 4 guys in the room. And you, one of the first ones, he said only 4 guys, and you were sitting in the very first row talking special teams, and you stayed there to the very, very end. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. He had 3 sessions, and there was an offensive session going on, a defensive session, and special teams. Greg was at Illinois at the time, and that's how we became buddies. I sat in there for all 3 of his sessions. On the last session, I was the only one left, and it was an awesome clinic because it was just one-on-one between Greg and myself. So that we became really good friends after that. We'd cross paths, and different places I'd be at, I'd call him. Sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, ask him a question. Didn't matter if he was getting prepared for the Super Bowl with the Saints or any place. He'd always answer. Matter of fact, I just talked to him a couple of days ago. We usually visit about once a week. So just a great coach, and he's in our club, Coach Monica. We're I think I've got a ton of respect for Coach Monica and what he's done. I just told a story the other day about him. I was speaking at the New Orleans Quarterback Club, and his son was there. He's done a sensational job at Rummel High School, and I just the first time I went and watched Coach Frank's team play at St. Charles Catholic, I just loved watching them on the sideline for the national anthem, because you don't see that much anymore, and
Right.
And that's important to me. How our guys represent themselves is very, very important to me, and I think that's getting lost nowadays a little bit. And I tell my guys, we talk about sportsmanship all the time. There's nothing wrong with being a tough, hard-nosed competitor, but also being a great, great sportsman. And we need to get back to that a little bit more. And I think that coaches like Coach Monica, they're rare. You don't see that much anymore.
Well, thank Coach. One thing I was impressed with your first 3 games, especially, you guys didn't have many penalties, and I know that you have a coach designated just to go through the post-game penalties and go over with the team. You guys been excellent at that department so far this year.
We haven't had a penalty on the defensive side of the ball yet. We in 4 games, we had one pass interference, but they caught the ball, so it was waved off. No, we do it every day in practice. We go over that as a staff, and then I make my coaches show it to our players the next day morning in meetings. We're a morning practice team around here, and so many penalties can be prevented. The ones that we really talk about and really get upset about are pre-snap or post-play penalties. Those are the ones that anybody that at the game can call. Lining up in a neutral zone, 2 guys in motion, 12 guys on the field, hard to win with 10, impossible with 12, and then post play. Those are usually guys that are trying to put on a show, after the play's already been over, a late hit, something like that. So we really accent those, because once the ball's been snapped up until the end of the play, all the calls that the officials make are really subjective calls, and one time they may call it a hold, the next time they may not call it a hold. But those pre-snap, post-play penalties, we really accent those.
I used to call those administrative penalties, because that's something that we can control.
Exactly.
Your team can control that.
Exactly.
The other things are subjective and interference or whatever it might be, holding. Those are gray areas, but we can control the administrative penalties, from that standpoint, offensive and defense. But I was very, very impressed with that, Coach. The people don't know, I've been to your many college practices, and after 12 years and myself at Tulane, and watched a lot of guys. I saw Lou Holtz, Joe Paterno, their practices, but your practice is about as well organized I've ever seen, and you are right in the middle of it. And you're not just a CEO, you're a ball coach. And that's one thing that I really admire about what you're doing there. You're a true ball coach, and you can tell that you love the game of football. I get a kick out of you with your microphone walking around. You look like Elvis Presley in the middle of the field, and you're barking out signals. And when it comes to the tackling circuit, I love the fact that you run the donut. Now, a lot of fans don't know what the donut is, but that's that newfangled thing that people use for tackling did. But I was so impressed, Coach, with the way. And where did you learn that structure from?
Coach Randleman was great with it. And then I coached for another guy. I coached a bunch of junior college football. I coached for a guy named Dick Foster. And he's the all-time winningest junior college coach in the history of the NJCAA. And just an awesome coach. And we would go over practice. This is before you had all the video. And like I watched, probably 4 or 5 hours of tape today, after practice got over, because you can pull up anything on your computer now. But Dick we would go through practice, every single period. Each coach had to talk about what drills they were going to do, how they were going to do the drills. He would question them and, just write down notes after note. And we had just incredibly organized practices. And that's one of the reasons why we won so many games was just our organization, because you just didn't see that much at the junior college level. I'm sure it's the same thing when you were coaching high school ball, how organized you were. But we do that every day. We go over the practice in great detail. And, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but I got it right here. I got a tape recorder, and I have that. I got this from Bill Snyder years ago, the head coach at Kansas State.
Kansas State. Mm-hmm.
And I'll go and I'll make notes during. I'll record notes during practice. Today I had 46 notes that I said. I used to always, write the notes down. And while I was writing stuff down, I couldn't see what was going on the field. So I just use the tape recorder, and then I transcribe the notes afterwards. Some days I'll have 70, 80 notes. Some days I'll have 20, 30 notes. But it's, just trying to get our practice as perfect as we possibly can.
Yeah, Coach, Vince Gibson used to do that too, but he went through about 20 of them 1 year. You could never find them, something like that. Coach, one thing I wanted to mention, I was a special team coordinator for a couple of years at Tulane, and it was, and I know you really emphasize it and stress it, and I wanted to tell the fans this, but one thing that was always interesting is that all of a sudden you have to have your best guys on special teams if you want to be successful at it. And here comes the secondary coach, and he walks in the office and says, "Frank, can you take my corner out? He's taking too many snaps. Can you take him off a special team?" Well, a little while later, here comes the receiver coach. He said, "My guy's running all these 9 balls and the streak routes." He said, "Can you take him off? He needs a break." Then here comes the running back coach. Before you know it, you're playing with a JV special teams, and all of a sudden, when there's a punt block, everybody turns around. It looks directly at you. You know how that goes. But you emphasize it, and a good special team has to come from the top. There's always expression that said, "A fish always stinks from his head." So the head coach must be responsible for the special teams to make sure that they get enough time on the field. And you've done a great job with that. I know you had a couple little hiccups the other day.
Oh, yeah, big hiccups.
I know you're going to rectify that.
But this is actually the first year I haven't coordinated in a long time in the kicking game, and we'll get it fixed. I've hired a great guy, and he'll do a fantastic job. He did a great job in the first 3 weeks. But you're right. I always tell guys when I put them in the special teams, I say, "Hey, man, I got a really good relationship with the head coach. So we're gonna put you in there, and if you want to come out, we'll get you out on offense and defense, but we're not going to get you out on a special team." So we take a lot of pride in it. We had some hiccups, as you said, last Saturday, but we're gonna get back to normal this week.
Good, Coach. Just turning a little bit to the Houston game. I know that the coach over there, Dana's done a great job over there. I liked his offense when he was at West Virginia. At one time, I think his name was even mentioned at one time for the LSU job. But what's your take on what do we expect to see against Houston?
Well, as you said, Coach Holgerson does a really nice job, and they've recruited just great. I mean, it's a heck of a setup over there, and they're getting a lot of kids to stay in town. They've got, I think they signed, 4 or 5 4-stars, their first 5-star in school history. They're making that move up to the Big 12. So this is going to be the last time we'll play them for a while. So we're excited about the opportunity. Going to be Friday night at 6 p.m. on ESPN. So we're going to be on national TV, and we need to redeem ourselves. We're disappointed last week. We played well in spurts and, won a lot of the statistical categories except for the most important one, the scoreboard.
Yeah.
We need to. It's first conference game. That's another big deal for us. So we're looking forward to going over there Friday evening and playing.
Great, Coach. Listen, Coach, I didn't know this when I was recruiting. I had Dallas for a little while, but the Golden Triangle, Beaumont, Houston area, they call it the Golden Triangle. Oh, yeah. They have more schools in that Golden Triangle than all of Louisiana. And people don't understand. So when you talk about talent in the schools over there, you know that because you have a Texas background. They're massive. I mean, they look like colleges over there. They even have one stadium, I think that one high school has a 60,000 seat stadium. Isn't that right?
Well, they've got I think it's a $68 million stadium. It's Allen High School. And I don't know, when they opened the stadium up probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I was in there recruiting when I was at Sam Houston State, and the coach was a buddy, and I went into the high school and I went through the weight room and the offices. They were out on the field practicing, and I went out on the field. And I said, "Hey, coach, man, I've heard about your facility," and I went through it, and boy, that's a really nice facility. And he said, "Coach, that's the JV facility. Let me take you into the varsity." They had twice as nice of facilities as what we got here, or what we had at Sam Houston, or wherever. And I went down, and it was an unbelievable place. But they got a lot of places like that. It's amazing the quality of high school football here in the state of Louisiana without those type of facilities. I mean, I recruited a whole lot when I came here, and I've been just so impressed with, number one, the coaching, and not having the advantages of having maybe 3, 4, 5 guys on staff who don't teach any classes. That's that's a little unusual. And also not, they got a weight room the size of my office.
Right.
Whereas these other places, they got 10, 15,000 square foot weight rooms, So
I know that too.
Great facilities over there.
Yeah. And in Texas,
you know how that is. I've been upstairs in your place before.
Yeah, the Taj Mahal there, Coach. But it's really cool is that you go into Texas and there'll be 20 coaches on the staff, and there'll be 10 spittoons all over the place. Everybody's chewing Red Man, so you have to dodge that for a little bit. That was cool, great experience. But Coach,
you get a kick out of this, Coach. Yeah, we were playing Kansas State the other day, and before the game, how one of the coaches kind of watches what the other team's doing in warm-ups, to see if they can steal a signal or cadence or something. And we're over there playing. I got one of my coaches over there watching them warm up, and they had about 25 guys over there watching us. I said, "Wow, we're outnumbered here." These were their analysts and their all those other guys that they got. And so I feel it too sometimes.
Yeah, I remember talking to the guy from Alabama one time. He said, in Saban's staff, they used to have a staff of 10. He said, now all of a sudden, the meeting room, there are 32 guys in their meeting room, the official staff. But, Coach, just switching gears with you, how is the impact of this transfer portal? I noticed that you got a couple, and I think that's a great idea. Tulane is actually made for that. They have a guy from Northeast or maybe even the Ivy League of transferring to a place that already has a degree and wants to work on his master's, because Tulane is actually like an Ivy League school in the South. And I know you've exploited that, and I think that's a great idea.
Well, we've gotten some guys like that. We got a guy from Columbia. We got a guy from Brown that we've had before. We actually got a guy that transferred in from Duke. He's got an undergrad at Duke, and he's going to get a master's degree at Tulane. We got a kid that transferred in from McDonough 35. One of the things that I'm trying to do is I may not get kids on the front end, but I'm trying to get them on, on the back end maybe with I think we signed 4 guys that came and transferred in, one from Warren Easton, a good running back, Shot Clayton, Lawrence Keys from McDonough 35, was at Notre Dame, Patrick Jenkins from John Ehret High School, who transferred in from TCU. I'm missing somebody. I hate to do that, but sometimes guys go away and they think the grass is greener someplace else, and all it is green, and they want to get back home and let their parents see them play, maybe go to their own church on Sundays, and so we've had some luck with getting some guys in there. One of the kids told me, they said, Coach, that weight room was the same size after I'd been there 6 months, but he said it sure did impress me when I first got there. But lifting weights is lifting weights. So I think it's a good rule. The only thing I worry about sometimes is guys fighting through adversity. They get a little adversity, and all of a sudden they're looking go to the next place. Hopefully there's a legitimate reason for him to do it. We've lost very few guys, and I think the big reason for that, I feel like we got a good culture and we treat the kids right, but I think the kids also value a Tulane degree. I think it's a big deal for them.
Yeah, I'd hate to do that now, Coach. It looks like you have to re-recruit your kids, and if you get in one's face, they're so sensitive and say, "Wait a minute, now, Coach, you're not supposed to fuss me." But anyway, I just coached the Pratt kid, the quarterback. I had an opportunity to work with him at the Manning campus, sat next to him, and he's just a gentleman of a kid. Really pulling hard for him, and I mean, I know he's been there his second year, throws a nice ball, but he's just a great kid, very, very intellectual, and seems to love the game of football.
He loves the game. He's up here all the time. I got to kick him out of the office. He's a servant leader. His parents are that way as well. They're helping as many people as they can down in Florida, and he just a lot of fun to be around. Always got a smile on his face. Very competitive. This is actually his third year here at Tulane, and we kind of threw him into the fire his first year and had a nice season for us. And last year he got beat up a little bit, during the course of the year. And but he's just one of those kids. He's just tough, always answers the bell, and he's played well for us out of the gate. But a tremendous leader. He's one of our captains. He was a captain for us last year, captain for us this year. You don't find very many second-year guys that are captains for you, voted on by the players.
Because I enjoy watching him. He's just a pleasure to talk. Easy to talk to. You have one of mine, Coach Mandel Eugene, that little pencil neck linebacker over there. And I told him he needs to eat some Wheaties and get a little bit bigger because you're a linebacker. They have some gigantic arms, So he better make sure.
I tell you, Mandel, he loves you, Coach, and he loves St. Charles Catholic, and he's a really, really nice young man. He's I deal with these guys, all the time. I'm like the principal. It's sometimes they come in my office and they sit over here in these two chairs, and I have them in for other good stuff. You call them list guys. You got to be at breakfast, lunch. It's mandatory for us. You got to be there for meetings. We started getting taped at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then we have meetings at 7 and practice, weight room. We check every one of these guys' classes, and Mandel he is. I don't know if he's been on the list yet. He takes care of his business. He's where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, and you'd be very proud of him. He's very.
Coach, I'm telling you, his mom is phenomenal. When he first got to St. Charles Catholic, his mom walked up to me and said, "Coach," he said, "he's yours." He said, "You do with him whatever you want to do." She said, "Because if you don't, I'm going to body slam him." She's beautiful. But Coach, just a couple of little things. And I know you got things to do, but the stadium idea at first was not great. In my mind, I was hoping that everybody would stay in the Superdome, and but watching the game, especially on that upper deck with the bar right behind it, whatever, and it's so close to the field. It's being like an upper deck of Yankee Stadium. I really enjoyed that view.
I've always say this all the time. If you come to a game, there's not a bad seat in the house. I think every seat is a good seat, and you can't say that in a lot of big stadiums. You're crunched in there, and there's a rumor of a game going on down there on the field, and I just think it's a perfect size for us. Unfortunately, we didn't get the outcome we wanted the other day, but we had 20-some thousand in there, and I thought it was a very festive atmosphere. And I think it's a great stadium. It's right in the middle of campus, and we really like it.
Coach, it's funny. When some people say, "What about the parking lot?" I said, "Wait a minute now. You guys forget when it was an 82,000 seat stadium there at one time." And you were parking all over the yards, and some people would park in the river. But the bottom line is that they forgot that very, very easily. Coach, one last parting question for you. Not a question, just a statement. When I first retired, Coach, you had your staff, and I never will forget this. In fact, I still have those. You had your staff all write me a handwritten personal letter about retiring. I just thought that was awesome. I got to admit this. You made me cry. I had 19 different cards from you and those coaches. And I don't know if you had a gun to their head or you threatened them to take away their salary, Coach. But I mean, it was very, very special to me, and I showed that to my wife, and she said, "That's the kind of guy that you are." So how in the world? I mean, we're just hoping and pulling so hard for you to run the table here and get yourself in bowl eligible, and I'll make sure I'll be there and everything, Coach. Listen, I wore green for you. You know, I used to have all kinds of Tulane. I like it. I used to have, I don't have a number in the back, but I used to have all kinds of Tulane gear, you know, at one time. And but the floods, the 2 floods that my house was involved in, it's all gone. But Coach, I can't thank you enough for taking your time to do this, because you're a busy man, and I know you got bigger fish to fry tonight.
No,
so
I don't. That, next time you're up here, we're going to get you some more apparel. We'll get you some more Tulane stuff, and we just think the world of you, Frank. You've done it the right way, and not everybody does it the right way. There's more than winning games, and you certainly epitomize what a coach is supposed to be about. So thank you for the example that you set.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Coach. My wife says it differently. She said she had greatness thrown at you, but you ducked. But Coach, thank you so much. Jason, anything for Coach?
Coach, one quick question. It's kind of a long-winded quick question, but you've had a legacy on the football field of winning wherever you've gone, whether it's been at the junior college level or the lower levels in the Sun Belt Conference, and now at Tulane. What is the legacy that you want your players to remember you by?
I was involved in their lives every day. I never have a day where I don't hear from one of my former players. Matter of fact, we're going over to play Houston, and I've got, I don't know how many guys coming to the ball game, and I never get to see them. I'm busy, and my wife will tailgate with all these guys, but I had the best experience a few years ago. In the spring, some of the colleges that I coached at were having spring football, and we had a reunion at Coffeyville Community College, and I was a D coordinator there for 4 years, and we had 50, 60 guys at it and just had a riot. And then Blinn Junior College, as a head coach there 4 years, I had about 70 guys that came to that reunion, and we had a riot. And then same Houston State, I was there 3 different times, and we had over 100 guys at those reunions. So that's the probably the one thing I'm looking forward to in retirement is I'm going to be able to go to these different places that I've been at. But it's like I've been talking about with Coach Monica, it's more than coaching. That's all you're in it for. You ought to get out of the profession, in my opinion. But I've enjoyed every place I've been at, and we love it here at Tulane.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for your time. And we, speaking for Coach Monica, but we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to have a conversation with us.
Thank you all. Y'all have a great evening.
Good luck, Coach. Good luck so much. We'll pray for you.
Thank you.
We want to once again thank Tulane head coach Willie Fritz for joining us. And we'd also like to thank our sponsor, LSR, for sponsoring the Let's Beat Frank video podcast. LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Samuel Liccardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Liccardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen. Starting in 1981 as an industrial vacuum truck company, A3M Vacuum Services has grown to be an industry leader in waste disposal services. Whether it's providing cleanup crews for plant maintenance or emergency crews for environmental cleanup and disposable projects around the river parishes and New Orleans, A3M Vacuum Services maintains the same level of personal customer relations and work ethic that founder Pat Sellers started almost 40 years ago. Proud supporters of Comet Athletics.
If you're looking for commercial or residential dump truck services, go with R&K Construction. This family-owned and operated business has great trucks and are big supporters of high school sports. Smoothie King LaPlace thanks the community for 29 years. Through the good times and the toughest times, Smoothie King has been here to serve our guests. Whether you're looking for a keto-friendly smoothie, a recovery smoothie, or a healthy, refreshing snack, Smoothie King has you covered. Discover all the ways to be your best self and rule the day with Smoothie King. If you're in need of storage space at your home or business, stop by and visit with the good folks at Acadia LLC. Seth Bouchard and his employees are there weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Give them a shout at 985-359-1333 or visit them at 1301 West Airline Highway in LaPlace.
We are back in segment 3. This is our Let's Be Frank segment on the Let's Be Frank video podcast, and we'd like to thank our sponsors, Riverlands Insurances, for supporting this podcast. Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has always been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen. And we are going to go ahead and dive right into our Let's Be Frank segment. We were actually just discussing this over the phone the other night, Coach, and we said, let's make this our segment because so much has changed in recruiting over the years. And can you dive into what has changed, what's beneficial, what changes would you like maybe to see, or what former rules may be more beneficial to coaches? Go ahead and start wherever you want in that conversation. A lot of ways to go with it.
Well, that's pretty broad, Jason. And one of the things that I also want to enlighten some of the parents about exactly what they expect, especially the parents that have prospective student athletes that looking to go to college and play football or any other sport, really, because the rules are very similar. First of all, I want people to know that every coach that's recruiting has to take a recruiting test. And he has to score at least 80% of it. And you say, well, 80% of it, that's like a C average. But even so, they're still required to take the test before they can go to road recruiting. And every university has what they call a compliance officer. So in the old days, the compliance officer, you'll only allow one phone call per week to a recruit, and whatever night that came on. And if the parent answered the phone and you gave them a recruiting spew, that was your one phone call per week. And all these logs must be documented and given to the compliance officer on a weekly basis. Nowadays, they no longer have that. Nowadays, they have Twitter where you can constantly contact the kid. In fact, I've seen coaches on the sideline or recruiting coordinator on the sideline, and they've actually done away with the recruiting coordinators now, but they have people on the sideline that can contact that kid by Twitter, said, hey, are you watching the game, and something like that. So you can have constant communication with players nowadays, which you couldn't have before. Also, they have what they call a dead period, and the dead period means you cannot have any contact with this kid other than the one phone call, but you cannot go visit that player. Now, one of the big discrepancies over the years have been what's considered a bump. So if I am at a mall and I run into a prospective student athlete and I actually talk to him, that's considered a bump. And all of these bumps had to be recorded. Well, nowadays, things have changed because of NIL stuff. So it's made it totally different. So Twitter, Instagram, all the social media things have been really upgraded and have been part of the recruiting process now, which you didn't have before. A recruit has only 5 official visits to take. I want people to understand that. Only 5. Now, most recruits are not going to take all 5. Now, that's official visit. And what's the difference? Official visit is everything is paid for. The transportation, room, board, meals, everything is paid for an official visit. Only you'll allow 5. Now, most kids do not need 5. I've always been a proponent. 3 is plenty. The NCAA can save a lot of money for the university by just saying, let's just do 3 rather than 5. You know, every kid within any sense whatsoever, they know which college they're going to go to within 3. They don't need 5 visits, and that would save the university an awful lot of money, and the coaches would not have to babysit some of these guys. The other thing is the recruiting visit is only allowed 48 hours. So wherever it starts, it must finish in 48 hours, and that includes its travel time. Now, is this violated? I don't know, but it's very, very important to understand that. Every Division I school is only allowed 85 scholarships, full scholarships. Now, in other words, a football guy cannot split his scholarship or 1 of the 85s. In the other divisions, they allowed 63. For instance, the Nickel State Salesians of the world, they allowed 63, but they can divide theirs up to an 85. And so they might get one a meal ticket, and one other guy might get room and board, so they can divide theirs up to reach that limit. And some schools, and Coach Fritz will elaborate on this too, some schools do not have the benefits of walk-ons because of the tuition rate is so high. But some of the state schools really, really have a very good job of that. In the old days, we had to go, this is how recruiting used to be. We had to go to the campus, and you're only allowed to go 6 times to a certain campus. That include the games or something like that. And you had to either watch practice, watch a game, or get video. At that time, it used to be VHS tape. When I first started coaching, it was 16 millimeter things, and that would drive you crazy. And then try to have to splice those things just to watch a tape, and you didn't have access to it. So you can make a lot of mistakes way back when. Now, with all the camps and things that's going on, it's very, very easy to see a player and all the things that are out there. Everybody's into highlight tapes, and one thing I never did like strictly to recruit a kid off a highlight tape, because have you ever seen a bad highlight tape? If you do, whoever was making that tape should be fired. They used to have, right now, we when you recruited a kid in the high school, you have an early signing date. When I first got into coaching, you had to wait all the way to February. So what that means is that if a kid committed to you early, let's say he's committed to you in December, you had to wait till February to sign him. And I'll tell you a quick story. I once had a kid that committed to me when I was at Tulane, and all of a sudden there was a banquet. An LSU coach spoke at the banquet. Well, this particular kid came up to get an award, and the LSU coach said, "Who's that big kid?" And it told the kid's name, and you know what? The next day he committed to LSU. So I had to get out in my car, drive all the way back to the school, and try to turn the kid back around and put him on a guilt trip, saying, "Wait a minute now, you committed to me first." But the early signing period now, which I really like, if a kid likes you and it saves the university money, he can commit to you and sign in December and not have to wait till February. And those coaches love it, because if they have 25 to sign, which that's the maximum that you can sign in a year, okay, if you have 25 to sign and you sign, let's say, half that class or 20 in December, well, you only had just 5 more to go, so you knew exactly where you stood. So it would actually purge the class, and you have a pretty good idea of where you are. So that's important. It used to be 95 scholarships in football, and I thought that was fair, because 85 makes it pretty tough, especially spring training. You take somewhere like Tulane, for instance, they don't have the luxury of a lot of walk-ons, so they have to rely on their scholarship guys to actually produce for them. And so 95 I thought was fair, but what had happened when Title IX came in, they looked at football and they cut football, and because they had to give more scholarships to be more equitable to all the female sports. So when that happened from 95 to 85, I didn't see where the extra 10 would hurt anything. I would love to see them go back to that, because I think football is different, because there are injuries involved in football and a lot of issues involved with it, especially with the transfer portal, the way things are now. So you allow those 5 visits. Unofficially, though, you can take as many unofficial visits as you want to. The only thing is the parents of the kid does not get anything on unofficial visit. Even an official visit, parents can go, but you're not allowed to pay for it on that level. Now, can guys get merchandise? No. As long as you're recruiting a kid, you can't give him merchandise. Now, how hypocritical is this? Because now with the NIL stuff, once he does sign, he get unlimited stuff. You know what I mean? But LSU just got in trouble, put on probation because a coach gave a prospective recruit some paraphernalia. What he gave him, probably a jersey or a hat or whatever it might have been, but it's not allowed with the NCAA rules, which I think is kind of an oxymoron now, and which you can do. But parents have to pay their own way, and LSU just put on probation just because one of those things. And the other thing they used to change, we only had that one phone call per week, and all that was logged. But the bottom line now, it's just unlimited, but the amount of contact that you can have with the player. But there is a dead period. It is a thing called a quiet period now, which means almost the same thing as a dead period. The quiet period means that you can't do anything. Now, it also used to be you could go out and sign the recruit. So I remember one time I had 8 particular guys that had to sign. And I was all over the state and Mississippi trying to run to my recruits and sign them in one day. Because if they did not get the papers signed that day, they were free to go somewhere else. Remember, NIL, it's the National Letter of Intent. You're only allowed to sign one of those. You only sign one of them. And once you sign that, you're bound to that school, okay, for at least a year. So you're bound to that school, so you have to sign it. Now, if mom or dad, and there was a very, very classic case over right down the river here, where one particular mom did not want to sign that particular NIL deal just a few years ago, and it was a big controversy. Finally, the mother did succumb to the kid's wishes, and she signed the NIL. But in order for that to be that contract to be binding, it must be signed by one of the parents. So recruiting over the years has changed tremendously. It's wide open. Coaches now I don't think they have to work as hard because a lot of it's dependent on camp. And when the guy comes on campus, they'd rather see him and work him out themselves rather than rely just on film. Now, I don't agree with the way that is being done now, because to me, it lends itself to a lot of mistakes. Because highlight tape, for instance, I never did understand the value of just a highlight tape. I want to see a guy play good or bad. I would never sign the kid unless I watched him practice, unless I watched him play in the game, and I've been to his home and talked with his mom and dad. Because recruiting is not exact science. It is the lifeline of every football program or any sport. If you recruit or you perish, it's just that simple. And I remember years ago, I was recruiting a guy by the name of Dalton Hilliard to Tulane University. I thought I had him. And the coach told me, he said, "Coach, I think you got him." And then all of a sudden, one guy gets a hold of him, and Coach Jerry Stovall, if you ever recruit against Coach Jerry Stovall, you're probably going to lose. And he got a hold of Dalton here, convinced him to go over there. And the coaches on my staff said, "Coach, are you signing a 5'7" running back? We need a big guy." Well, lo and behold, we didn't sign a 5'7" running back. Dalton Hill is probably he is in the Saints Hall of Fame. And I remember the first game that he played as a freshman, he lighted up the scoreboard, and everybody said, "Well, I guess we should have taken Dalton Hilliard." So it's not an exact science, but over the years, let me tell you something. There have been a lot of mistakes made. How we let some of the guys go, because remember, if a guy's really a standout player, our wives can pick him out. But if he's an average player, sometimes you have to do a little bit more research in high school to decide. I had recruited a guy years ago by the name of Jawan Dawson. We ended up playing for the Houston Texans. Phenomenal guy. Jawan played on the football team that won one game in 2 years at H.L. Bourgeois. They won one game in 2 years. And when you looked at his film, you would not take him. But we knew exactly what the kid was all about. His coach over there really pushed Jawan, and probably the best thing we ever did. And we was one of the receivers on that 12-0 football team that Tulane had. So recruiting has changed, but remember, it's not an exact science. Now, you do have Division III schools. Those are need-based schools. That means that they don't give scholarship. They can recruit longer because they're not giving scholarship. They give a partial, but it has to be an academic type scholarship. They don't give athletic scholarship. So basically, and let's be frank, recruiting is the lifeline of a football program, or baseball, basketball, whatever it might be. And if you work hard at recruiting, you probably end up with better players. Unfortunately, there's some teams that have more resources. And remember this: no matter what, Kids want to go somewhere where they do this, where they think they can get a ring. It's not. You can talk a lot about character, but kids, they want the ring.
Coach just mentioned you've never seen a bad highlight tape. I don't think you've ever seen mine because I don't have one. But if I did have one, I don't think you'd be super impressed with it. But looking at Football 101 segment where you get to break down a different part of football for those people at home, today you want to talk about the route tree. So, Coach, what exactly is the route tree for those people watching and listening, and how do you use it in the course of a game?
Well, Coach, I hope I don't bore anybody with this, but I thought that, a route tree is kind of universal. A lot of colleges use the same numerical system. One, you have a numerical system. Like, for instance, a 0 route is a hitch route. A 1 is a quick out. A 2 is a quick slant. A 3 is an out, a speed cut. A 4 is a curl. If you notice my trend, inside routes are even numbered. Outside routes are odd. So a 3 ball, for instance, is a speed cut to the outside. A 4 ball is the curl to the inside. Now, you can name them, give them a name, or you can give them a number. Okay, a 5 is a deep comeback. A 6 route is a deep dig, which means across the route over the middle, but it's a squaring. Some people call it that. A 7 is a corner ball. An 8 is a post. And the 9 is the infamous fly, go, streak, whatever you want to call it, a fade. There's a lot of names for the 9 ball, back shoulder technique. So that's a route tree. Now, say, well, Coach, how is that important? Well, once a guy goes from one program, especially in the NFL, they go from one program to the other, and you tell them, I want you to run an out or I run a 3. Some people call their plays like this. Let me show you how easy it is. For instance, if I say I can tell this receiver on the right, I can talk left to right, you run a 5, you run a 4, and the guy over here, you run a 3, and the guy over here, you run a 7. So, I mean, you can put all those numbers together, and that's the route. So all I have to do with position my plan. And that's what they call a route tree. So that's single route. A combination route, it could be given a name. For instance, you might name it anything. You might name it maybe Tiger, but that's memorization. So in other words, when I say, all right, we're running a Tiger route, this guy knows he has to memorize on the Tiger, this is what I do. Or there's a route called Pogo. There's a route called Sluggo, which means a slant in a go, which you see a lot versus man coverage and stuff like that. A hitch in the go. So there's a lot of names that coaches come up with. And, it was sort of funny. My first time at Tulane, the coach said, the offensive coach, Coach Linden Fine, said, Frank, you're the name coach. I said, what in the world is the name coach? He said, it's up to you to come up. When we come up with a new play, you have to give it a name, because that way kids remember it better. And but the route tree is designed to be coordinated with something. So, for instance, if you can, what a lot of schools do, they will call, if they have 2 receivers to the right, 2 receivers to the left, they will say, okay, I'm going to run a route. I'm going to run curl flat to the right. But over here, I'm going to run a stop ball and a corner ball. So the quarterback, depending upon coverage, if it's cover 2, for instance, he might look at the right. If it's cover 3, he will look at the left. So basically, you have 2 different routes versus the coverage. So, I mean, what offense are trying to do, they're trying to eliminate a bad play completely. And that's why you see a lot of delay of games, because the quarterbacks are trying to check to the proper play or something like that. So that's where we are with the route tree. I mean, it's a lot to say about it in terms of this. But if a kid leaves the program, he knows exactly what a 2 ball is, which is a slant. He knows what a 3 ball is, which is an out. He knows what a 4 ball is, which is a curl. Some people don't do the numbers at all. They use names for every route. Okay, this is a curl. They call it a dig. In the pros, then they get some guys. You ever notice how lengthy their plays are? In fact, one of the things that you can tell from a defensive coordinator, if they're spending more time in a huddle, it's probably a pass play. Because run plays are very, very easy to call, and it'll be numerical also. And 3 digits normally mean a pass. 2 digits normally mean a run. And so when the quarterback is in the huddle, and in NFL they do more huddling than they do in college. In college they use a lot of boards and flashes and things of that nature and signals. So, but that's basically what a route tree consists of.
Thanks, Coach. Again, it's a concept I've been familiar with, but even I pick up a few things from that conversation. Let's go ahead and look at our Blitz the Ball Coach segment, where we had a fan submit a question to us. Coach, the question that we have this week is, what is the most difficult part of coaching?
I think the most difficult part of coaching is installing your values of the discipline. That's the first thing that you have to do. You have to get their attention. So you have to pay attention to detail, make the little things very, very important, but you have to get their attention, and that's discipline. And you have to say, we need to be different. We don't want to be like everybody else. So when you go in there, you have to implement that and a system to show them that you have a system. Kids want discipline. Whether it's your kids at home, they want discipline. I've heard me say this many, many times. You get what you tolerate. You know what I mean? So it all starts with that. I think one of the biggest compliments that coaches would give us is that, Coach, your teams look so disciplined, even though we might be off a little bit on technique, because people don't like to go against disciplined football teams. You know, they want to see somebody that's undisciplined. They want to see guys that just kind of helter-skelter. But you can tell the difference, and a lot of coaches are afraid to go in that direction because they're afraid they'll lose them. I think that, especially with this transfer portal thing going on in college, you know, if a coach really gets hard on a player and gets really demanding, that player might get really ticked off and say, well, I'm going to go play for somebody else where I can do my thing, or whatever that means. So I think installing that discipline and making sure that the tail that wag the dog, no one player is bigger than your program. No one plays. So if he leaves, let me tell you, the other kids will respect that. I think the number one thing that a coach can do is be fair to everybody. You know, in my coaching career, I treated them all alike, all bad, but they knew exactly where I stood. So I think it's very, very important that they're treated all alike and that you're fair. They will see through you in a heartbeat. I mean, it's amazing. You know, they say that kids are the best psychologists in the world. They will see through you and they can tell you sincerity. So I think the most important thing is discipline and sincerity.
Coach, thanks for the all right, thanks for the question, and thanks for the memory segment. You wanted to discuss the 1984 Jesuit St. Aug game, and you said it was one heck of a ball game.
Oh, Jason, I mean, I go back and I think of that. We had some battles with St. Aug over the years, and they've always had a talented team. Coach Watson at the time was there before Coach Villegas took over. And it was my first year at Jesuit, and I had no idea what playing St. Aug was all about. We were 8-0, and so was St. Aug, 8-0. And we met at Tad Gorman Stadium on a Sunday afternoon. Back in those days, you had to draw for the stadium, and there weren't many other fields around. So and it wasn't turf. And I mean, there was no grass by that time of the year left on the field, and you had chalk down there. There was no paint and the whole deal. But anyway, we played them. It was 19,000 people there. Bill Bumgarner, the sports writer at the time was the Times-Picayune, he labeled it as one of the best 5 games ever be played in the history of New Orleans football. And it was a very close game. It was 14-7 right before the half. We got the ball deep in our territory, and we got into a 2-minute offense. And you know, one of the coaches says, Coach, we taking a knee here, go in for it? I said, no, we can't. I said, this team is too explosive. We got a 2-minute offense. Tommy Ings was the quarterback and went all the way down the field. We scored to get up. You know, the game ended 35-14, but I mean, it was the most exciting atmosphere you ever seen. Had a guy on that offensive line by the name of John Repo, who ended up going to Tulane University. But, you know, lo and behold, Jason, remember, after your highs, your lowest low. Remember I said that earlier? Well, we had to come back and play a Holy Cross team that had 2 wins on a Thursday. So we went from a Sunday to a big win to a Thursday night, and that was our first loss of the season. So we ended up 9-1, went into the playoffs, played a phenomenal West Jefferson team, but we had expended so much energy in that game, it probably cost us there too. But that 1984, that game with Tommy Ings was the quarterback, and I mean, just a resilient football team. We really were outmanned, but our kids played really, really hard that day, and they wanted to win that district championship. Back then, a district championship was more important than people going to the playoffs, because I mean, the Catholic League was, you know, you had people like Shaw in there, you had De La Salle was in the league at one time. Chalmette was in the league at one time. So you had it was very, very tough goal, but a very, very special moment in my life.
Thanks, Coach, for sharing that. And I've seen quite a few big games that you've coached on the sidelines at St. Charles. I've gotten to see it both as a player and covering you. And again, I wish I could have seen that ball game, and if there's some tape out there, I'm going to have to find it so I can take a watch. Coach, this week, our Lock of the Week segment, which hasn't favored either one of us a ton over the course of this season, but let's try it one more time. Who do you have this week?
Well, Jason, I think, I really like Auburn just to cover. I would love to see LSU win, but the 9 points for LSU team that's just young and just trying to get there, I think that's a good bet myself, but we're not going to put the house on it, maybe a car or two, but I'm not going to put the house on those 9 points. But I am going to I think Texas A&M is too talented. I think Brad Johnson is really, really good. For Mississippi State, I think a 3.5 point favorite over Texas. I don't get that. I don't know what they know, but I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I think Coach Fisher is a better football coach than he's shown. We all know that they have great talent. And again, I like that left-handed quarterback. I was sorry to see him ever leave LSU. So I'm going to go with Texas A&M in the play. I think it's 3.5.
I'm going to go with UTSA covering 4 points against Middle Tennessee State for the exact reasons that we've talked about all show, Coach. I think Middle Tennessee State put so much into that game, and let's be frank, name of the show.
You like those other little guys. You don't like the big guys, do you?
Coach, I'm gonna tell you what. The way I view it is, I like the smaller games because most of the time they know the bigger games. So I feel like if I can pull one over on Vegas, it's going to be those smaller games. But I like UTSA with the 4 points. Middle Tennessee State just came off of that big win against Miami. They're riding a little too high. Head coach from Middle Tennessee State was a former Seminole, so he's getting all the pats on the back, even in the post game. I don't think their mind is on this game. As you mentioned, every cliche you've thrown out, Coach, pats on the back becomes kicks in the seat of your pants. Highest high comes your lowest low. I think there's too many distractions and too much congratulations for Middle Tennessee State. And we saw it a few weeks ago with Marshall dropping their game after they beat Notre Dame. So I'm going to take the little guys, like you said, and I'm going to take UTSA covering against Middle Tennessee State.
Good, very good. I agree with that.
And that'll do it here. Coach, anything to add before we head out?
No, guys. Listen, just hoping that this will be a good week for everybody. I hope that everybody wins if that's possible. You know what I mean? Because I'm a coach's guy. And I hate to see guys on what they call the hot seat. We already had a couple of changes, and I saw at Boise State the other day they fired their offensive coordinator, and that's awfully tough when that, because they've had such a great history of offensive football, so let's pull for all the coaches this week and pray for them and hope that the alumni eases up. But I learned a long time ago, Jason, those cheers of those dissenters out there in the bleachers are always there, and they're just waiting for something negative to happen. And but when you're winning, they can't say very much. But all of a sudden, you get a little adversity, and then it becomes a different story. So let's hope and pray that guy. And let's be a fan. And that's one thing that Jason, you don't see much anymore. You hear more critics in the bleachers than a fan. A fan is someone that they'll applaud anytime that the team does well, but rather than being critical. So there are more critics out there, especially, I don't know, ESPN has done a lot of that. I mean, they here is a sports channel that stays on 24/7, and I guess they have to be critical because that's what keeps them on the air. But I'd rather see more people be fans.
Coach, thank you for that, and that'll wrap things up here for this episode. Next week, we're going to have some more high school football, college roundup, and of course, we're going to be diving into some more opinions and stories from head coach Frank Monaco. So that's going to do it for us for today. But don't forget, before you leave, go ahead and follow us on our social media platforms. Facebook is the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is the LBF Podcast. And that's going to do it. So we appreciate you guys.
One last thing. We got Bobby April. He was a pro in the NFL for about 20 years. He's going to be our special guest next week.
Sounds great, and I can't wait to have that conversation next week. And that'll do it here for us. So for our producer, Justin Thomas, For Coach Frank Monica, I'm Jason Duhe. And remember, let's lay ball to our way, let the good times roll.